Hello everyone and welcome to the first of our F1 2024 setup guides. Yes, at the time of recording, the game should just about have gone live now, and you're probably getting ready to dive into your first ever career mode race here from the Bahrain International Circuit. You might have gone onto Time Trial and downloaded a setup ready to go, but that is not how the meta is going to work inside F1 24. So over the next month or so, I'm going to be uploading a setup and track guide for every single venue inside F1 24. It's going to feature a setup designed for races, provide you with a kind of race strategy as well, and of course also help you out with learning what you need to be looking for around each of the Formula 1 circuits. As I said, Time Trial this year and racing are going to be completely different. You've got to manage the tyres a whole lot more, and you're not able to lock up like you can on Time Trial. Plus, you get unlimited energy, so it's not very accurate in that regard either. If that sounds good to you, make sure you get yourself subscribed, leave a like as well. There will be timestamps linked down below if you just want to go to one part of this video. No, this setup will not help you break lap records in Time Trial, but will certainly make you a better racer. So let's head then onto the Sakir circuit. I'll talk you through the track, we'll take a look at the setup, and you guys can have a look at it all in one fluid motion. Well, here we are then out on the Bahrain International Circuit. Of course, the lap really does begin down at the final corner. Of course, you've got this lovely gantry, which not only serves as a fantastic advertising board for Pirelli, but also gives you a fantastic indicator as to where you want to be braking ready for this final corner. From top speed, obviously you get this nice curbing on the outside. You want to basically be braking under this shadow about 85 meters out from the apex of the corner. You'll be coming in, I believe, in 7th gear, and you want to get the car all the way down into 3rd before you meet at the apex there. Be really, really careful on the inside of this final corner. You can see actually the curb goes up and then tapers off the other side. You do not want to get out over this top part of the curb. You want to make sure that you stay just on this side of the serrated area, and as you pretty much meet the apex, you want to go up into 4th gear there. Open up the corner on the exit. Try to make sure you don't run wide out onto that yellow stuff, but you can get 2 wheels out on that curb, and like I said, short shift up into 4th gear on the exit of that final corner. Open up the DRS as you're making your way down towards turn 1. Of course, you will reach 8th gear by the time you get to that first turn. Keep the car on the left-hand side. You really don't need to worry too much until you start getting in towards the braking zone. You can see, again, you've got this curb on the outside of turn 1. I don't tend to use it. It is very, very serrated, and you could potentially upset the balance of the car. But you want to be looking to brake just before you reach the 100-meter board in towards this first corner. Keep the car straight as you possibly can, and avoid pinching the front right wheel. Otherwise, you're going to run into a lot of problems in towards that first corner. Get the car all the way down into 2nd gear, and then I'm trying to make sure I take a really, really late apex. You want to be aiming for the rear wheel to just nick the inside curbing through turn 1 there, and as you open your way out through turn 2, you can get the car back into 3rd gear. Short shifting does not work inside F1 24 anywhere near as well as it has done on previous games. So when you go up into 3rd gear, you want to leave it there. If you get the line right, turn 2 is completely flat. You can take all the curb you like, and you want to be trying to make sure you're maximizing the exit of the corner as well. As you see, we actually get all over this curbing as well. It won't upset the balance of the car. And then try and take the line of least resistance as you make your way up the hill. Once again, you're going to be keeping the car pinned on the left-hand side of the circuit. Again, you'll be up into 7th gear by the time you make it up towards turn 4. Braking again at the 100-meter board there. You can use all of the curbing on the outside here, ready for the next corner. And again, you actually want to be taking quite a late apex in this year's game. Of course, traction is a whole lot easier now, so you can get on the throttle very, very early, but be careful as there is a bump on the outside of this next corner there. Get the car over. Again, you can use all of this exit curb once again. I've said it so many times before in videos that you'll see in the near future. Exit curbs are fine. Apex curbs are lethal there. So get the car all the way into 6th gear. You'll notice on the qualifying lap that we do, I actually leave it in 6th through this next S-bend. Yes, the high downforce levels are a little bit weird, but in race trim, I would say once you flick the car over to the left slightly, go down into 5th gear, and then try to attack the curbing there. Don't get the wheels over the inside curb through the next corner, and then again, completely avoid the exit curb through the left-hander there on the outside. You don't really need to use this outside curb, but if you find yourself out there, I would say potentially just blend the throttle. You want to be really, really careful as you make your way down the hill. Now, obviously, you want to get the car completely back over to the left-hand side, but you're actually looking for this little point in the road here. You can just see the line, it slightly tapers back over to the right-hand side there. So if I try and just show you, obviously, if you've shuffled the car all the way back over to the left-hand side, obviously, you'll be coming in. You'll still be angled out towards that curb. Just as you go past the part where you can see the white line move slightly, you want to get the car straightened up, back down into second gear again, and once more. I'm actually turning in much, much later than in previous games there. Tack the curb in on the exit, and then really try and open up your steering off the exit of the corner. You can short shift up slightly into third gear, but again, nowhere near as much as you've been able to on previous games. Now, turn 9 and turn 10, they have been infamous in real life in IRL Formula 1, and for years, in previous F1 games, they haven't been that much of a struggle. On this year's F1 game, they absolutely are. Get the car over to the left. I would suggest actually avoiding the curbing on the outside. In qualifying trim, you can brake as you rotate the car in. I, however, have found in race trim, I'm actually braking slightly early before you go into the corner there. So basically trying to cadence brake in, and basically once you kind of get halfway through the first part of the apex, you're straight lining it all the way out to the outside curb. Avoid trying to go too far over it, otherwise it will really drag the car over to the outside. This year as well, I actually find taking a bit of an earlier apex through here, you can go completely over the curb, but I would say try to avoid it as best as possible, and then straighten out the car once again, utilising that second gear. First gear, unless it's the Monaco hairpin, is not going to be too relevant in this year's title once again there, and you can really lean on that serrated curb on the outside as well. Making your way down the back straight, of course, you're going to cycle all the way back up into 7th once again. There's actually very, very high downforce around this circuit this year, so you're not actually achieving as high speeds. Get the right-hand side wheels out over the curb, and as you reach this blue line here, you're going to be trying to get on the brakes again. So as soon as you reach that dark blue, straighten up the car, and try to rotate it into the next corner. You can sometimes get a little bit of a slide, but I would say in race trim, again, avoiding that inside curb. Back up into 4th gear as you try to get on the throttle on the exit. Don't lean on that outside curb. You're going to just find yourself understeering and try to get the car tucked over so you can aim for that little black piece of asphalt there as well. And as you make your way up the hill, just swing the car in 6th gear. You might want 7th if you've been able to carry good enough speed, but you can actually use the curb this year. Don't have to avoid it like you've had to as much in previous games. Making your way, though, up towards the top of the hill. Again, this curb on the outside, you can see the car bouncing around. Avoid it, and just as the circuit starts to turn in slightly, you want to get yourself on the brakes. I'm using 3rd gear through this next corner and really try and tip the nose in, but pretty much as you meet the apex, go back up into 4th, and then as you round your way out on the exit, again, you can use all of the available space on the outside of the circuit, get those 2 outside wheels over the curb to really maximise your run. Just one more corner to go now, of course, the final turn of the lap, and as we said at the start of this guide, you are going to want to be braking just as you go under the gantry, back down into 3rd on the entry, and then as you meet that apex, get up into 4th again to carry the speed off of the corner there. And there we go, a lap of the Bahrain International Circuit. I'll be honest, as a track for learning no line, this one is actually one of the better ones inside F1 24. And there we go, a lap of Sakir. So let's go take a look at the setup. Well, heading in then to take a look at the setup, you can see we were only about 1.4 seconds actually off of the Esports pace, which, to be honest for me, is much better than I could ever really do inside F1 23. The meta will change a lot, I'm sure, over the coming weeks and months, but we have really just tried to make sure that we are happy and balanced with the car. Of course, as things change, as they continue to develop, I will probably come back to Bahrain as well down the line with a new version of the setup. Now, Bahrain, of course, you've got 3 DRS zones around this circuit, so top speed is quite important. I'm using 3430 wings. If you wanted to go with a more low downforce setup, I would suggest, say, using 3026. Again, it seems like early on the meta inside this year's title is slightly more front wing than rear. Otherwise, you're going to upset the balance of the car through the corners. But yeah, lower downforce, maybe go 3026. higher downforce, I really wouldn't suggest you want to use more than 36 front, 33 rear, but 34-30 was a good middle ground that I found work for me. Adjustment on throttle, I'm running on 40%, and then off throttle I'm running up at 50. Of course, we've got the all-new engine braking setting as well. I've left that on 30. It just seems to be what works for me inside F1 24. Of course, I'm sure as things change as well, we might alter that slightly, but it gives you a good balance of charging at the battery pack when you're in races, but also allows you to really push on when you need to as well. There it also means that, you know, if you're trying to lift out behind someone, if you're in a tight group in one of those DRS trains, that obviously you're not going to completely scroll off speed and go into the go into the front of the car behind you. Suspension geometry, I'm running quite a low amount of camber, minus 3.2 degrees on the front, minus 1.8 on the rear. Of course, this circuit is very traction limited, so you have got to be really, really careful, especially, obviously, you know, turn 2, turn 4, and then also, obviously, on the exit of turn 10. But, of course, you've also got to be really, really careful, and you want to have a good, stable car trying to break down in towards turn 9 and turn 10 as well. And as we've said, you know, with how important tyre wear is this year, you really don't want the tyres pointed too far out, otherwise you'll increase resistance on them and therefore increase the wear as well. And that's why the toe has been put at 0.09 and 0.08. You want a slightly more aggressive front setup than rear, like I said, where this circuit is generally rear limited, so that's what I've kind of altered with. And that's kind of where I felt the most comfortable when I was doing laps inside the game. Suspension as well. Again, the front you need a bit stiffer than the rear. So we're running 23 front suspension, 17 rear. Front roll bar down at 7 and the rear anti-roll bar at 5. Again, that'll help you with that traction through those tricky corners. And ride height this year has been massively, massively altered as well. So 25 front ride height, 55 on the rear. You could experiment with it a little bit lower, but I'm finding, of course, because the curbs on the apexes are quite aggressive here, if you do accidentally turn in too early, it allows you a little bit of stability as well. And obviously, you know, it doesn't make the setup on a complete knife edge, which is obviously really, really important early on in the game, especially, you know, if you're dealing with a car that is quite bad as well. Having a setup that is a little bit more forgiving is always going to be helpful there. And of course, a nice low rear ride height, although it is obviously still meaning the car is pointing slightly forward as well, is decent enough, because of course it helps you get the rear the weight over the rear end of the car and will allow you slightly better traction on the exit of corners. Now, brake pressure is something that everyone kind of uses a little bit differently. This will be the absolute killer. If you just take a time trial setup and try to run with it in a race, you're absolutely going to destroy the tyres by locking them up constantly. All the time trial meta this year seems to be 100% brake pressure, 50% brake bias. I found 97 brake pressure and 54 bias. Just allows a good balance between obviously still being able to brake late into the corners, you know, especially here if you're side by side with someone, will allow you to brake later on the inside, but also with a 54% front brake bias, actually means you're not locking up as much and will allow you to come off the brake into a corner as well and really try and rotate the front end through. And then last but not least, 23.4 front pressures and 21 rear tyre pressures there. Like I said, things will shift around. I think especially with the brakes, you want to really just find something that works for you. I like a car that quite brakes on the front end, but also obviously allows you a little bit of slide on the rear. So, you know, you can try and tip the car in a little bit through, you know, turn 10 on the rear end where you need to, but ultimately I find as well 97 pressure allows me to better look after the tyres, because Bahrain is still a one-stop strategy. You want to go mediums to hards in your league racing, or of course vice versa. The softs will not work around here that well, so I still think, yeah, the one-stop meta of mediums to hards is going to be the way forward inside F1 24. But now we've kind of gone through all the technical stuff, I will let you guys enjoy one fluid lap here of the Bahrain circuit. Like I said, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed as well if this is something you enjoy. Tomorrow we will be back on the Jeddah Corniche ready for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.